All right. I'm starting with where I come from, which is landscapes. Landscapes, everyone knows this, the sky is above, the earth is below. There's a sense of depth. And from landscapes and my love of rocks, I developed into what I like to call geological photography or geological art photography, which unlike, hello?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is now, for all intents and purposes, flat. It's not perfectly flat, but there's no sky, very little depth. But I'm looking at it not about a scene or a place, but for form. And this particular form comes from a cave in Sardinia called East Sudas, which has these very unique formations called frostwork. And I looked at this and I said, wait a second. After learning a little about Jackson Pollock, I said, boy, this looks a lot like Jackson Pollock's famous Blue Poles from 1952. Now, it's not an exact copy, obviously, but the elements are there. And then I found this photograph that I had taken in 2012, even before I was fascinated with deserts and formations. But I looked at this and I said, hold the phone. This reminds me of Pollock's, Pollock's, there we go, mural from 1943, which lives in Iowa and was in the Guggenheim for about 2 months last November and December. So here's my photograph, which is a sand river in Bisti Badlands, northwestern New Mexico. And there are some little things, if you look around, see my cursor, the little thing there and a little thing there, it's kind of reminiscent of Matisse. So I want people to let their imaginations flow and make any associations you can. Here's my Fauvist photograph from a drone about 200 to 300 feet up of little painted desert in Arizona, not too far from Flagstaff. And this is another drone photograph in Oregon at Painted Hills.
Joel,
yes.
you're okay. Your slides seem out of sequence.
No, I put them in this. This is my sequence.
I know, but we don't see it when you're talking about it. So maybe you could watch.
You don't see Painted Hills?
Now I do.
Oh, so it's taking a little time to come across?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, here we go to the next one. Can you see this one? This is another one. This is from Blue Basin. It's another drone photograph.
Yes, we can see it.
You can see it? Okay, great. This is also Oregon in the John, the lava. Oh, I forgot the name. But anyway, painted. This is the Blue Basin. This is also the Oregon coast. It's another drone photograph. I call it Thor's eye, because this formation down here is actually called.
Oh, we don't see the photograph.
I see it.
Karen, you have the lag, I think, not the rest of us.
Oh, I have the lag. Okay, I'll be quiet.
Okay, so this is Thor's well, which is the famous name of this thing, which at high tide fills with water like a circular waterfall and then explodes out because it's hollow under the rocks. But I didn't get there at high tide. It was at low tide, so I missed the show, but it was a very interesting formation. And from above, it looks like a face. This is from the Isle of Ouessant, which is about an hour and a half off the western coast of France. So I'm photographing these because of their evocative power. This is a telephoto from across an inlet. I believe this is Bisti. This was an obvious question mark, in a formation that was millions of years old in White Pocket in the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument of northwestern Arizona.
Joel?
Yes.
Joel, can you share how you come upon these places? Is it research and you find them? Is it serendipity? How do you come?
Okay. There's a lot of planning that goes into this. I have some wonderful guides to photographing the Southwest by Lauren Martres, Martres. And, you read that thing and your eyes pop out. And then I see, boy, when I get there, I'll have my particular take on this. So this took about 5 hours, including getting lost in a four-wheel drive vehicle through sand and mud to the place where you can stay overnight. And then I managed to get this picture. But I plan my trips very carefully with a spreadsheet, and for accommodations, for moonrise and set, sunrise and set. And then when I get there, make modifications. But yeah, it's very, very closely planned. If anyone wants to see a sample of how I plan a trip, I'll be happy to send you an itinerary.
You know what, Joel? I know this is maybe your second time at least.
Yeah.
The next time you present, that would be great to see how you start something like that and show the sheet. That would be really.
Oh, sure. Oh, if you're interested in that, absolutely, absolutely. I'll be happy to. This is from Valley of Fire, wonderful state park about 40 miles north of Las Vegas in Nevada. It's just an infinitely interesting park. And this one seems to have a certain sexual connection. And this is also Valley of Fire. This is their fire wave. And this is where my companion last year got lost. I wanted to see it as the sun was close to setting, and I set out, and she said, she came with me, and then said she was going back, but didn't go back. In fact, ended up spending the night in the desert, and we had to get Army helicopters out, and they finally found her at 3 p.m. the following day. Well, I was back this year, and they've set up yellow posts taking you to the fire wave. I had gone in the complete wrong direction, but it's amazing, and it's almost as nice as the famous wave in Coyote Buttes North. And there are some people on top with some walking poles. Now, this was a picture at dawn at, I believe this was Coyote Butte South. And there's the sun on this golden hill in the background. And what I see as a sleeping giant in the foreground. I see it as a giant. I see a mouth and a nose. And so it reminds me of the mythological story of the golem. But that's just me. You can see whatever you want in these. What's going on? Click back. Oh, no. All right. And this is from Coyote Butte South towards sunset. Now, in my geological art photography, there are those where the whole frame is covered with a flat plane, and you can fantasize whatever you want. But there's also the natural sculpture, of which this is one. The crowned fish, call it whatever, crouching crowned fish. But it was an amazing formation in Coyote Butte South, which was another night I stayed overnight. And I went there, you can see the snow on the ground. I went there in January and February of 2020, before the pandemic, because I wanted to see certain places like Bryce Canyon in the snow. This is also that same trip. It's Grand Falls, and it's the Little Colorado River, which is a trickle in January, but the colors are just amazing. And I believe this is a drone still. I flew my drone, I took panoramas.
Yeah, Joel,
yes.
How comfortable, or how much do you appreciate the drone now from always being, with a regular camera?
Well, I mean, the drone gives me the aerial perspective, and using what they call God's eye, which is looking directly down, I can get my flat plane photographs from a perspective very high up. So I started this flat plane thing, as you saw in that Sand Rivers for Jackson Pollock at the beginning, just photographing what was right in front of me, right under my feet, so to speak. But that with the drone, I get higher perspectives and very different compositions. It really opens up a whole new world. This is a landscape, no apologies, a landscape. I couldn't avoid it. At dusk, you can see the ice in January at Coyote Butte South. And finally, this is a dawn. This is a dawn with a little extra lighting, and it's also a natural sculpture. Okay, so that's the color show. but the monochrome show is a little more elaborate, a little more extensive. Okay, this is a photograph I took back in 2003 in Gabriola Island, off Vancouver Island in British Columbia, in a place called the Malaspina Galleries. And I just went nuts. The formations were so beautiful. To the right would be an opening to a saltwater sea inlet, okay, which fills some of these holes with water, and this little puddle that looks like a person. So, I mean, this is so unmistakably humanoid that I have to consider it surreal. These holes, these puddles are called taphoni. Taphoni, singular is taphonu. It just means indentations or concavities in Italian, but you find it close to salt water or where salt water was in the distant past, like in Arches National Park. There's plenty of taphoni. There hasn't been a sea there for several million years, but this is right up against the sea. And it's also the cover of this book that I put together since my last book. And if you put your email in the chat, I'll do a drawing and send you a copy of this book. I only made 100 copies, but I think I may do another run. Okay, this is Unreal City. It's admittedly a landscape of natural sculptures. I see it as a destroyed city, or perhaps with overtones of multi-legged creatures, as we find in H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. The Martians were something like this. But these are really cap rocks, in this case, in a few cases like this case over here, with the cap missing, because they fall off eventually. But I just love it. And this is my archetypical miniscape, where there's an abstract design, but there's also a concrete history. You can tease out 3 or 4 rainstorms here, which are distinguished by the rate at which the mud dried. So when the mud dries quickly, it produces these curls, this curling formation. But otherwise, you have the thin cracks. You have these little mini gradients. I'm just fascinated with this, and I made a 24 by 36 canvas of it. So, you know, I like it. I hope other people like it too. Here's another one. This is from Bisti Badlands, once again in northwestern New Mexico, from a trip in 2016. I went to the center, the Santa Fe Center, and treated myself to a week in New Mexico. I call this one mud mosaic arrabbiata. Now, mud mosaic is David Munch's term for these formations of mud, but in his 1979 book, Desert Images, beautiful book with text by what's his name, the Monkey Wrench Gang guy. Anyway, he just shows patterns that drift off into the horizon, but I found real compositions. And so this is my very agitated, arrabbiata, angry in Italian, mud mosaic. Now this is the photograph that gave me the idea for calling this book Playgrounds of the Mind, because, you know, there's nothing here that's an obvious figure. But then again, you see some planets here, maybe 2 breasts here, maybe some fingers here. When I was in the Museum of Modern Art, I saw that a Basquiat painting had something like this, very crude. So you see these motifs in and out of art, in and out of our unconscious. So I call this Playground for the Mind. And the name of the book is Playgrounds for the Mind. And here's another one. This one I just took last month in April at a place called Little Finland, which is a very remote location. And when this is over, I'll show you on Google Earth exactly where Little Finland is. It's to the east of Las Vegas, about 20 miles, 10 or 20 miles from the shores of Lake Mead. But it took us about 3 hours from leaving the paved road in our high clearance four-wheel drive vehicle to get to it. And I was even panicking that I'd never find it, but I found it. It was an amazing place, a large playa filled with sand, and then a cliff about 30 feet high. And then you can get on top of the cliff from either side, and you walk about a quarter mile from one side to the other, from one end to the other, and see these amazing formations, which you'll see more of. This was down on the bottom, sort of. And I saw this, I immediately recognized it as something that might be interesting. I call it dreams of terror and desire. And it, it's very suggestive to me. And I'd be very interested to see if anyone else sees things. I mean, I see bodies extended up here. I see a face in agony here. But you can see whatever you want. Now, remember, in abstract painting, they don't make any claims that they're creating anything figurative. But I found, wait, I have to click back on this. No, back, okay. That there's a word, Paraidolia, which is the tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. The man in the moon, right? The whale in the clouds, Hamlet says to Polonius. Yeah.
So how do you make the decision, make it horizontal or vertical? Because landscaping usually goes in horizontal.
Right, these are not really landscapes, they're geological photographs. So what was the first part of your question?
How do you make the decision?
Oh, how do I decide whether to, well,
Yeah.
first of all, about 97% of these are the way I took them, the way I saw them. Okay, because in fact, if you look at the next one, that's what I actually photographed. That was the photograph. I'm giving you one original. If you notice, there's no contrast. I took this very same photograph at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and at 7 o'clock in the morning. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there was direct sunlight, very harsh shadows and contrasts. And I went back there early the next morning when the sun was completely on the other side. So this is only skylight, and it gives me much more to work with without the shadows. Sometimes they work. Have I answered your question? I mean, I'm seeing this. I see this when I walk by this thing. I thought, oh my God, that's a photograph. I didn't know what I was seeing. I didn't name what I was seeing, but I just knew that the forms spoke to me. Okay, I've seen a lot of abstract painting.
Yes.
And here's another one. In fact, this one I just added. I wasn't sure to put this in, but the more I look at this, the more I see it. The more I see it, the more I like it.
Absolutely.
Now here's an example. This is from Valley of Fire, and we got there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wow.
And this is an example of what you can do with geological photography in bright sunlight. You know, bright sunlight is supposed to be the enemy of landscape photography, because landscape photography is very much about light.
Right.
And so dawn and dusk, 2 hours before sunset, 2 hours after sunrise, those are the best times because the light is so magical. Absolutely, I totally subscribe to this. But when you're looking for forms without sky, without perspective, without a sense of place, harsh light, deep shadows can often be very provocative. Shadows work. Now, in this one, I must say thank you to digital photography, because I could get detail here in the original photograph. You don't see very much, but when you shoot in RAW, it's there. So I can bring this out and show you something closer to what the eye sees, because the eye can see these things. And I would tone down these to give you the texture. That's another thing. In using the RAW filter in today's Photoshop, you can enhance the texture and, of course, contrast and clarity, and give the photographs a tactility that might not have been available in film. Okay, so I call this masks, and the crack is just wonderful.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you so much. Now this one is back in the East Sudas cave, It's black and white, so it's in the black and white section. These are more of the frost patterns. These are actually called anthocytes. The forms are called anthocytes, but it's calcium carbonate. It's calcium carbonate, like every stalagmite and stalactite in a regular karst cave. It's just that the level of wetness and dryness creates these anthocytes that form into this pattern. So we're back in Jackson Pollock country with drips. But there's also the hint of a face over here, the hint of a profile. So I like to think that this is a sly reference to Archimbaldo. Now here's a photograph that I've loved, but in my timidity, I always wonder if anyone else sees what I see. And I mean, I immediately identified this in my interpretation, which is not necessarily everybody else's, as the native Mount Rushmore. I call it the psychoschematic native Mount Rushmore, because here we have a bunch of elders, not just 4 presidents, and of course the Lakota Sioux hate Mount Rushmore because it's all those oppressive white presidents. So this is the native version, but it's in Bisti. It's in Bisti Badlands in Arizona, in New Mexico. Sorry. So these are the natives, and they're and then right beneath them is what they're thinking but not saying. This is their speech. This is what they're thinking, and then below this line is their unconscious, their traditions.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a little game that I play with myself.
That's gorgeous.
Thank you. Now here we are in one of the most provocative places in the West. This is Goblin Valley, and Goblin Valley goes for about 2 square miles of these formations that are really mudstone, and they all have these little dimples, oddly enough, and there's a lot of pyramidal triangular forms with a certain amount of variety. Now, the rocks in the back are a slightly different color, but they're a very uniform color. And I was there in 2002, and I understood that back then that when you have uninteresting color, no contrast in the color, take it out and make it about form and texture. So this is late in the day, and I call this cadets, the young cadets. But here's another one from even later in the day, I believe. And this is towards sunset when the light was very gentle. And I call this the usual suspects, because they all lined up with great separation. Goblin Valley, it's near Hanksville, Utah, population 1,800. Hanksville, the home of the scrap metal dinosaurs. If you want to know more about Hanksville, I'll tell you, there's a wonderful rock shop there too. Now here we are in Alabama Hills, near Lone Pine, population 1,200, California, on Route 395. And it's just full of wonderful rock formations, but it's better known as the setting for many cowboy movies in the 40s and 50s. It's not too far from Los Angeles. I mean, 5 hours. There's a place to stay, lots of interesting terrain. But I saw these, and I call them Shmoo Solidarity, because I see these giant obese figures, probably drunk, leaning against each other. You can see their mouths. Yeah. Right?
That's true.
And the Shmoo was this amorphous figure invented by none other than Al Capp, right? The artist for Lil Abner. It turned out to be a terrible reactionary. But anyway, Shmoo Solidarity. And it works as a black and white with the dark sky, I think. Now, I came up with this idea, liminal figuration, an element in an image that lends itself to interpretation as a figure, although the intentionality of the artist remains uncertain. Okay, so is this Paraidolia or is it liminal figuration? Well, it's probably Paraidolia because it's rocks. But if you go to the next one, if you look at a Mata painting, now Mata was kind of the second generation surrealist, 1911 to 2002 he lived, he was Chilean. Here's a 1956 painting on the edge of a dream. And do you see anything you recognize? I mean, clams, or what do you want to call these things? But he's full of this liminal figuration. Now, he's an artist, so everything he does comes out of his head and out of his hand. So everything there is intentional. But then he's not telling us what anything is. So it's up to you to cross the line and say, well, I see particular things. Here's another one of his. Yeah. Here's another one. Here's a later Mata, 1996. Now, what are we seeing here? Are we seeing male sex organs? Are we seeing breasts or fried eggs here? You know, what is it? And he ain't saying. But this is late surrealism. He's not considered an abstract expressionist, although he came to New York in the 40s and influenced the abstract expressionists. But then again, let's look at an abstract expressionist. Here's Willem De Kunig, all right? And he's definitely an abstract expressionist, but he has even more identifiable figures like an eye and maybe a cow here. Okay, so this is the tradition that I'm identifying with in taking these photographs. Now, you can't just point your camera at a bunch of rocks and click and expect to get something. It helps to have this kind of figuration in your head, and you go around and you look for things provocative, both things that you can identify like schmooze or you know, or planets or mouths or something like that, and just provocative formations that you know will look good as abstracts. But this one jumped out at me. This is off Route 24 in Utah. It was not a park. It was just a place that looked interesting, passing it by. So I pulled over, backed up, and walked in. And about 10 or 15 minutes later, I had come upon this. You couldn't see this formation from the road, but it just looked interesting. And I said, oh my God, this is Giger country. If you know H.R. Giger, the creator of Poltergeist and someone who did a lot of devils and satanic imagery. But this kind of thing is very much like Giger. Here's two faces. So I call this Giger twins. There's a museum of Giger, by the way, in Gruyere, Switzerland. And this, I mean, to me, I see two comedians like an Abbott and Costello pair. You know, here's the straight guy on the left, and here's the comic on the right. You can call them fossils if you want. Their faces are clearly quite rotted away. But this is unmistakable. This I call the 5 million year old kiss. It's from Red Rock Canyon near Ridgecrest, California. And there were amazing formations there, but this is a close-up of one of them, and it just struck me.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Did you know about this beforehand, or you find it on your
I
web?
have the books, the Lauren Martres series, and there's one by someone else of California, same format, and he tells you about all these places. Now, when I was in Little Finland, I met these three guys who said, well, we're boondocking. I said, what's that? You know, you take your all-terrain vehicles and you drive around these tracks and you find amazing stuff. So, you know, I had learned about Little Finland in Martres's book on Arizona, by the way. It's his foray into Nevada.
Oh, I see.
But then there are many more that he doesn't even know about. And Lauren lives in Los Angeles, and he gets out to these places all the time. I call this chorus line. I see a line up. Anyway, and it's from this is from Alabama Hills, and this is from very close to Newspaper Rock in Utah. Just these faces with trunks.
Yeah.
Now here's Little Finland. Finally, we get to Little Finland, and this is one of the photographs that Frank very generously put in the publicity. I call this one Standoff. And this is from, I think, the morning. And you see these very sharply eroded formations. And it turns out that the eroding agent is sand and wind, is sand with wind, right? And it gets in your eyes. I mean, you know, it's there, but it's been going on for millions of years. So it produces these formations, and there's so many of them that are just so suggestive
Hmm.
and unmistakable.
This is what they call it, park something.
What?
Fantasy park. This is come from fantasy park.
Fantasy Park?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that. But
Okay.
anyway, there are these holes in it which become eyes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my valley girl. This is I'm here, I'm pointing with my finger. This is a hole. This is a little arch, a little tiny arch. There's even a nostril on top of the nose.
Hmm.
Now here we're back in Valley in Goblin Valley, and oh, I call this guy Jester. I mean, how many places can you find a nose like that? And this is Curmudgeon, also in Goblin Valley, and you can see the erosion patterns.
Hmm.
But by slightly enhancing the structure, the texture, you really get a tactile sense. And once again, the color is all the same, all monotonous among the formations. Of course, the sky is blue, but I think that would make it more trite. Now here we are. We're back on the Isle of Wesson, where these piles of rocks, and in particular, this one reminded me of E.T.
Hmm.
But then this is in Oregon, in a volcanic fissure called Crack in the Rock near Christmas Valley. It's about 1.5 mile long fissure that's about 30 feet deep. You walk into it very, very easily and stroll along. The light is very gentle. And this to me looks like it's kind of an angry, collapsed ET, but I call it intraterrestrial. And it was right below the ground. I don't know if was from an amazingly provocative place near Salvador Dali's house in Port Lligat called Salqueria Petita. And I just spent 45 minutes photographing these eroded granite formations in 2 or 3 levels. It was amazing. And I see here a zombie or a banshee. See the mouth and the eyes and the nose. There are a lot of these. But this is Cap de Creus, which Dali talks about in his autobiography. He calls it a catastrophe of cumuli in ruins. But this is a detail which was very haunting to me. There's much more to Cap de Creus. There's a little piece of it.
Hmm.
Now this to me looked like a profile with a nose and a chin. Another natural sculpture, which was on a 4-wheel drive road, sandy road in Canyonlands National Park. But this is my Taphonoceros. Or Taphonoceros. This is Taphony, right? And it's from one of the great Taphony sites in the world, which is Salt Point State Park, about 2 hours north of San Francisco. And I was there in 2015 before I even learned about Lauren's books. It looks like an animal though. And this was taken in bright sunlight, so the color would make it rather banal, give you too much sugar pleasure for your eyes. But this is called an Oriu. An Oriu. It's a giant taphonu. They call it a single taphonu with taphony in it. And you can actually go inside.
Wow.
And it's from Corsica. It's from southeastern Corsica at the end of a road. I mean, you really have to go to find it, but it was very, very rewarding. And there's a little, it's been closed up with masonry. So the shepherds would go there when they drop off their sheep or their goats or their cows during the transhumance, you know, the change of lower to higher altitudes in the summer. Oh, what do I do? Click back.
What?
And this I call Approach to the Castle, and it's from Vistay Badlands, and it's an architectural geological, not just a sculptural geological. And this is from Bonifacio on the southern coast of Corsica, a very famous place. and just extremely interesting. And they have all this limestone, these layers of limestone that built up on the side, and then they would fall off. There's a giant piece that's fallen off, and here's a giant piece that remained as the sea filled in around it. They call this the grain of sand, grain de sable. And Bonifacio, I'd never heard of Bonifacio. I went there, and then I learned that Bonifacio is actually the port that none other than Odysseus visited in the Odyssey, where he found the flesh-eating people, which were called the Laestrygonians, because he describes the harbor, and it's exactly the harbor of Bonifacio, very, very long, easy to navigate harbor. But these were Bronze Age people who did not like out-of-towners, and so they ate a number of his men. But now it's a thriving city with a medieval past, Bonifacio, Corsica. Now this is a sculpture garden in Bistai Badlands with hoodoos and caprocks. And here we're back at Little Finland, and I see this as a ship. Of course, this is all rock, right? So this is the water, and this is the ship, and it's Tafoni.
Hey, Joel.
Yeah.
How long did it take to do a body? I mean, what you're showing here, over how many years is this?
Well, I mean, the first one, that first color one was from 2002. But most of these, I really became aware of my geological mission in about 2015. I always loved rocks, but 2015 were the California ones like Salt Point. 2016 were the Bistai Badlands, and then I returned to Bistai Badlands. And well, that was 2016. I was there in 2012, and then again in 2016. By 2016, I had realized that I was going for black and white. In 2012, I still printed a lot in color, and that one, the second one I showed you, the Sand Rivers for Jackson Pollock, that's from 2012. I was really surprised to see I had seen this, but I didn't know what to do with it, so I never included it in anything. And then when my awareness became clearer about geological photographs, I went back to it and said, "Oh my God, this is a Jackson Pollock!" So it's now in my portfolio, but it wasn't for all those years from 2012 till this past year. This is a scene, right? It's a landscape with a close-up in the foreground of what looks like a dinosaur skull, but it's not.
Yeah, it looks like a dolphin.
A dolphin skull. Okay, I like that even better.
Down below there. But Joel, if we can move towards
yeah, we're coming to the end. We're coming to the end. Yeah, and this is a Red Rock Canyon in California, not Nevada. And I call this the Saints because it looks like a lot of saints in a destroyed church. Valley of Fire, and this is just a little envoi, a little at the end. 3 or 4 ice pictures, because ice is instantaneous geology. And this is from Patterson Falls in New Jersey on February 12th. I remember that because this is my 3rd trip to Patterson Falls in as many weeks. And the first time I went there, I saw, oh my God, because to take an ice picture like this with the blurred water requires a neutral density filter. And I only had one for my main lens. I didn't have one for my telephoto. So I went to B&H and I bought a 58 millimeter neutral density filter. I went back and took some pictures, but I brought my travel tripod, which wasn't strong enough to eliminate all movement. So I thought, damn it, I'm gonna have to go back. But then I thought, Henry James said, genius is the capacity for taking infinite pains, right? It's not inspiration. It's just, damn it, you're gonna do it. So I said, okay, I gotta do it. And I went back with my big, heavy tripod, and this is what I got at 0.8 of a second. This is right across the street from me, 1 March. And this is Goblin Valley and ice in Chester, New Jersey, where there was a drip down from a sluice, and it formed these stalagmites on blades of grass. It's very cold there. And this is from a galaxy far, far away, namely in the Bronx. It's a pond in the Bronx. And so here we say goodbye with this picture of 3 creatures taking turns at trying to eat the moon in Little Finland. Okay, there's my contact information. And I'm going to add my book, which is still available. And you can see it on earthforums.net. This, okay. And I will be at the other art fair, July 22nd through 25th at the Brooklyn Expo Center in Greenpoint. So if you've put your email, which enables you to be, how do I get back to talking? To be in the drawing, I will give away one of these books. And that's it. Thank you very much. How'd I do? 45 minutes, same as Bob. All right, great. And thank you. I really want to thank Frank and Bob and Jay for putting this together, and for everyone who came.
Yeah.
My God, I was very honored by all the people who came, friends, including some very notable photographers.
Yeah, no, that's another terrific night. That was really inspiring work, and the range is great. And the beauty of it is, like, all of you can continue each of your projects and then come back, with more work, which is something that is really the name of the game, to just see how these projects evolve, right? I mean, that's really, really important to everyone, to see how it goes and the promotion pieces. But you also see how, people like Louisa and Kwani, have incredible impact on people, pushing people to do work. The Mark, like with Mark working for another photographer, those influences. It's really important to, the community of photography to inspire each other. So, yeah, that was really terrific.
The world is large. There's so much more out there.
Yep. Anyone else have any questions, any comments?
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself and say something.
Mute yourself and
I want to know, what camera did you use?
Oh, what I'm now using a 6D Mark II.
Okay.
And it's a faster focus than the 5D Mark III that I normally use for around the house and around New York. So I have those two cameras I take with me. Sometimes when I do night photography, I set up one and then use the other.
beautiful.
Frank?
Yes, Louisa.
Something that I think we've probably mentioned this before, but I think it speaks volumes, is the importance of the personal project. Because all of these photographers that we see, their work is passionate because it's personal, and that does eventually get you noticed, get you more work. We've talked about that. So this is a wonderful example tonight of these personal projects.
Yeah, and it keeps you inspired.
Yeah.
Right. Which is the name of the game, especially under all these different circumstances. So, Janet, did you learn something tonight? Janet appears to be the youngest young lady of the evening.
Yes.
Good. Then it's great. What did you learn, Janet?
I learned about the different rock formations where he traveled to.
Great. Okay.
Where did he go to for that?
Correspond with me, Janet. Janet, write to me, and I'll send you anyone who wants my itinerary. Just ask for the itinerary, and I'll send you the one from this past March and April. I mean, my last trip was just last month.
Yeah, I would love to see that fact sheet where you put everything together, sunsets, all of that.
It's the itinerary. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Okay, I'd like it to have it too. Yeah.
But just
Frank,
put your
can you
email down.
email it?
Yeah, just put your email down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Make it easy for Joel, not easy for yourself.
No.
Or send me an email.
Yeah, that's all.
What is your email, Joel?
jssphoto@verizon.net.
Okay.
jssphoto@verizon.net. And everyone who put their email down, I'm gonna have a drawing for one of these books.
And I thank Mark for his project. I do have to have a personal conversation with him later on. And Robert, Robert, you're the dream come true. Starting with an idea, getting pushed and shoved in all different directions, and seeing it to the end is just great. Really, really great. So happy for everyone, and it does make people like Swanee and Louisa know that their words are listened to, and they come to a nice conclusion. So with that, we thank everyone for coming. Also, so you should know, I have two photographers next month presenting, both former White House photographers.
Wow.
One for George W. Bush, and the other for Bill Clinton.
Mm.
Now, we love these White House photographers.
Yeah, so
They always deliver.
So that'll be an interesting night in June. You'll hear and you'll see all the information about it. So I thank everyone for coming, and be safe. Get outside, spend money, so all of our economies can come back, and burn your masks. I guess we should have a burning of the mask.
Some of them are works of art,
Yeah, we can make an art out of it.
Yeah, we'll make a quilt out of them, or a collage, and it'll end up in the Museum of Modern Art.
Is that
right.
Barry? Everyone should send it. I don't know that he wants me to, but everyone should send their mask to, I think it's Barry Rosenthal, who takes product waste and makes it into.
It's Barry. Yes, it's Barry.
It is Barry.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So everyone get his mailing address and just send them your masks. And if he yells at you, it's totally my fault. But that's that.
Masks of paper, they go in the garbage.
No. We'll find you Barry's address, and we'll inundate Barry with props for his next show. So everybody, good night. Thank you so much.